All right, so both sides agree, right? The border needs help. So are Republicans playing their hand correctly when it comes to the issue of immigration? That is the topic of tonight's newsroom debate. Joining us now is Democratic strategist Maria Cardona and Republican commentator Scott Jennings. Hello to you both. I have been looking forward to this discussion because, you know, look, it spurs a lot of emotion, a lot of feelings and passion. Scott, I know you have some strong opinions about this, so let's get right to it. You have red state governors that are sending these migrants to Democratic cities up north. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida says this is now a front burner issue thanks to his efforts. But in using these people, including kids and families, as political pawns, is that really a good look for Republicans? Could it feed into a perception Republicans lack compassion and humanity? Scott.
Well, I think Republicans are doing just fine on this issue. In the NBC News survey that came out last weekend, they tested which party do you trust on a bunch of different issues. Immigration was one of the absolute best issues for Republicans. 46% trusted the Republicans, only 29% trusted the Democrats. That's a 17-point spread. So I think people instinctively know there is a problem. I think they also know they're being lied to by the Biden administration. You've got the White House press secretary, the vice president, even the president on a routine basis telling Americans the border is secure despite what we can all see happening with our own eyes. So I think what the governors did in sending those migrants to sanctuary enclaves, blue enclaves, it brought the attention back to this story. We weren't covering this story. Nobody was talking about the border. And as you pointed out when we opened up this segment, now it's one of the hottest topics in the election. That was the point. And the more that issue rises, I think the more Republicans are going to be in an advantaged position on it vis-a-vis the November election.
Maria?
I completely disagree. Look, I think that this issue is going to backfire on Republicans. And what they are doing now is showing their complete lack of humanity, their complete lack of understanding of what the immigration actually is and what are the root causes of it. What they are demonstrating is a base instinct to demonstrate their anti-immigrant, anti-Latino zealotry because Ron DeSantis, Greg Abbott, Doug Ducey, and the rest of the MAGA Republican governors saw how well this worked for Donald Trump in 2016. It is what enabled him to get the Republican nomination for president, and they are doubling down on that tactic. But let me tell you what happened in 2018 and in 2020. That same cruel, inhumane MAGA agenda was resoundingly rejected by the American people, and I believe it's going to be resoundingly ejected again because what they see from these governors is they are lying to these migrants, they are deceiving them, they are defrauding them. They have absolutely no interest in actually finding a solution. They are leaving women and children abandoned at the side of the road. If these Republican governors really wanted a solution, Pam, they would actually focus on trying to coordinate what they see is this big problem and wanted to do burden sharing. If they really did that, they would sit down with members of Congress, with other governors, with the White House, and figure out how to actually come to a solution, which is frankly what the Biden administration has been offering from the moment he came into office.
And I want to get back to you on some of the points you made, but Scott, you had brought up the poll initially about how respondents view Republicans' handling of the immigration, that being stronger than Democrats. I want to throw another poll at you, though. A Reuters Ipsos poll found that a majority of respondents say migrants should not be shipped to blue states, 40% to 29%. Polls and politics aside for a moment, would it not be smart, Scott, to have the governments of red and blue states just work together on this?
Well, I think it would be smart if the federal government would do its job. I mean, I think all these governors and all these mayors and everybody who's dealing with this influx of illegal immigrants, they're the ones who are being hung out to dry by the lack of a federal.
You say illegal immigrants.
Response.
These are legal immigrants that are that these governors are busing and flying elsewhere. I just want to point that out.
We've had 4.4 million people cross the border since Joe Biden became president, including 850,000 roughly that have gotten away. This is an illegal immigration crisis, and I mean that's how the American people see it. I don't think anybody's going to see it any differently.
You know what, Scott? I think you need to look at the facts and understand actual immigration law in this country. The migrants that your governors are using and abusing as pawns for their own political plays are actually here legally and are availing themselves of processes that are available under American law. And so that's number one. Number two, you all keep saying that the border is open. We just had Daniel Dale underscore that that was absolutely not true. You complain about the millions of migrants that have been apprehended at the border. You can't have it both ways. If the border is open, they would not be apprehended. These folks, these migrants that you're complaining about, that your governors are using and abusing, are coming here through legal ports of entry. So if you are actually proposing that we need to close the legal ports of entry, to close commerce to our second biggest trading partner, then I think your and your party's ignorance on immigration is bigger than we could all ever imagine.
Scott?
Well, I didn't expect to be insulted tonight, Maria, but I appreciate it very much. I ultimately think it's going to be a question of priorities, because what the Republicans are going to argue is, has the Biden administration done anything effective about this since they took office, and what are they doing in terms of federal hiring? They've hired 87,000 IRS agents and other personnel. They've denigrated the Border Patrol. I think if you put it as a question of priorities, Biden wants more IRS personnel than Border Patrol. I do think the American people would rally to the Republican side, and I think that's an argument
I don't know,
you're going to hear
that's-
Republican campaigns make in October.
But that's wrong
Really
too.
quick, let me just, and that's, you know, the IRS, I know
Yeah.
that's a whole different thing. It's apples
Makes
and
no
oranges.
sense. That's wrong, too.
But, and listen, and Scott, not trying to gang up on you here, just focusing on the facts here, but I do want to ask you, Maria, look, you brought up that poll, Scott, initially, and I think you made a fair point about, you know, how most of the respondents, the majority, viewed Republicans stronger on this issue than Democrats. Perception is reality for people, right? Kamala Harris, the vice president, has been tapped to lead this effort. Should she go back? Should the president go to the border? He hasn't been. He had a drive-by of the border back in 2008, I believe, according to the White House. I mean, he hasn't been back since. Should they show more to people that this is a top priority?
Look, what the administration has done is more than show. They've actually acted. You talk about Kamala Harris having been tasked to focus on these issues of the root causes of immigration, right, Pam? Early on, she went to Central America to talk to her counterparts in South America, in Mexico. Look what has happened. The Border Patrol and Department of Homeland Security just put out numbers that said immigration from Mexico and from Central America are at huge reduced numbers. So clearly what she was doing, what this administration was doing, was working. What has happened since Venezuela? The immigrants that are coming over now,
We're
the
in record
majority
crossings.
the majority
We
of the
literally have
immigrants,
record
the
crossings.
majority,
We do not have
Hold on,
reduced
hold on,
immigration.
Scott.
the majority, yes, Scott,
on.
we do. From Mexico, listen to what I'm
we
saying.
have
From
reduced
Mexico and Central America, the numbers are reduced. The
my
people
God.
that are coming over here, Scott, people coming
on.
from
Okay.
Venezuela,
We got-
from Nicaragua, and from Cuba, frankly, they're fleeing dictatorships. These should be the people that Republicans
They're
are
the
welcoming
asylum
with
seekers.
open arms.
Okay, very quickly, Scott, final word to you, and then we have to wrap it up. It seems like you're going to
You know what? My final word is this. If Democrats would like to run a campaign saying the border is secure and there's no illegal immigration problem, I wholeheartedly endorse
not
it.
what I
think they ought to
said.
keep
Hold
doing
on,
it,
hold on.
And I think they ought to say it on TV every day.
All right. Scott Jennings, Maria Cadena, I knew it would be a fiery conversation on this Saturday night, and you both delivered.